this book came to me when I realized that the story of East African Goans had to be told through pictures, because pictures really can take you back to a place and time in a way that words can't. This beautiful picture that you see on the cover was donated to me by Pressy Figueira. Pressy Figueira is the granddaughter of Jean Simão Figueira and his wife Preciosa. Now, Jean Simão arrived in Zanzibar in 1892, and the very next year he was promoted to the manager of the Zanzibar Gazette, a hugely influential position to hold at the time, and one which he held until he retired in 1916. The story really begins on board these beautiful dhows. This picture here has been captured by the very famous Goan photographer who operated in Zanzibar at the turn of the 19th century, which was A.C. Gomes. And he's captured here a dhow coming into Zanzibar, and right there, right behind the dhow, you can see the steamer. And of course, Goans had also begun to travel by steamer around this time, or they worked on board steamers and periodically came on shore and stayed there at times and returned after a while. Now, this picture here, which was loaned to me from the Winterton collection, is a very important picture because it's dated to 1890 and it captures Portuguese Street in Zanzibar. And of course, this is where Goans first set up their shops. And if we go in here, you can see the signboard of Dr. F.B. Pasha de Noronha, who is possibly the first private medical doctor to arrive in Zanzibar, and acted as physician to the sultans. And onto the side of the street, although you can't see it very clearly, is another Goan store, Peter Paulo de Souza, General Traders. Another suite of photographs which I'm particularly fond of are these donated by Caetano Rosario de Souza's great-grandchildren. Now, Caetano Rosario de Souza, or C.R. de Souza as he was known, was the patriarch pioneer of the East African Goan migration. He arrived in Zanzibar in 1865 and he set up a store. And over the course of the years, he would grow to be hugely wealthy and influential in matters in Zanzibar. This picture here you see rests in the ancestral house in Velsan. And over here is a wonderful picture of his son, Roldão, with his wife, Jovita. Now, Roldão and LCO took over the business when C.R. de Souza died in 1900. And even though C.R. de Souza started on Portuguese Street, they then moved the business here onto Main Street. This is a picture dating to 1890 of the Sultan's Goan Band, which was very famous at the time, and it was headed by a succession of Goan bandmasters, and it comprised of many Goan musicians. And right here on the next page you can actually see a typical program that they performed on the 23rd of March 1898, and you can see the names of the bandmasters. The second bandmaster is Isaac de Souza, he's from Saligal, and the first bandmaster is Camilo Sildana. This is another rare picture that I want to focus on for a while. It was loaned to me by Ruth Albuquerque. She's the daughter-in-law of Manuel Francisco de Albuquerque, and MF the Albuquerque, was very well known in Zanzibar. He arrived in the late 1800s, and for most of his time in Zanzibar, he acted as the Portuguese consul on the island, and he played a pivotal role within the community as well. My favorite chapter in the book is the making of Nairobi, because here for the first time I've really investigated the integral role Goans played in the founding of Nairobi itself. This is a map, 1904 Nairobi. It's been loaned to me by the National Archives very generously. And if you see here, this is where the 80-odd clerks working for the Uganda Railway or the Protectorate offices arrived and lived, very close to the railway station. This is the traffic office. That is the office that they prayed in and became their chapel, and finally seeded the Holy Family Church in Nairobi. Here is the European Bazaar, but there were Goan traders operating there as well, and you'll find out the role they played in Nairobi. Here is a plot of land owned by Abi Kune, nearly 6 acres, and on both sides of the river you'll find vast swathes of land owned by Indians, which of course as Nairobi grew would disappear. This is where the Protectorate office clerks worked and held fairly influential positions. On the very next page you're going to find a photograph of Nairobi between 1901 or 1904, and this gives us a splendid view of their quarters. And you'll see how sparse this area is, how isolated and alone. And it was not unusual to have wild animals come really close to their living quarters. And there's a description given of these living quarters in 1901. And it says, all are built of corrugated iron and wood, raised 3 feet from the ground on pillars of iron or stone. And what we know about these quarters is that during the rainy season, they became waterlogged, leaving its inhabitants vulnerable to plagues and disease, particularly lung disease. And in the book you'll find names of people who contracted the plague, names of Goans who contracted the plague in 1902. Of course, no book on East Africa would be complete without a major chapter on the founding of the Goan Institute in Nairobi. And here we have a picture donated by his son, Armand Campos, of J.M. Campos, who was the first founding president of the Goan Institute in Nairobi. And we don't really know much about him, but there is a very good biography of him in this book and of the type of person he was. An innately intelligent person, a civil activist, someone with absolute clarity of vision about what he wanted to do with the Goan community in Nairobi. An amazing man, way ahead of his time. And really a tribute, I think, to the first early Goans who arrived in Nairobi. Towards the very end, there's a beautiful picture here of Goans in Nairobi, and the picture was dated, has been dated, 2nd of April 1926, and it's a very keen perspective on the sort of high society that lived in Nairobi at the time. And it captures the essence of Goan elite in 1920s Kenya. the day, this is a collector's item book. It's not a book you'll be able to buy in a commercial bookstore. It's a book that's going to go out of print very soon. So, if you're from East Africa or have a connection or an interest in East Africa or in things Goan or in things colonial, this is a book that you should own. And that's not just my recommendation. You can check out some readers' comments on my website.